Hello and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here for the very first time, welcome. I'm so happy you're here. My name's Hannah and on this channel I post commentary content primarily on the topic of anti-MLM, but I have been branching out into new topics as well. I just did a video about a toxic TikTok trend that was really funny. That was a lot of teas. Toxic TikTok trends. And I love that video. It was really fresh and fun and different and something that I've never done before, but anti-MLM is the primary topic, so I'll link a playlist here for you. This is my big anti-MLM playlist. We're coming up on like 180 videos if we're not already there yet. This is number 70 in just the horror stories series. So if you're really into these horror story videos specifically, there's also playlists on my channel broken down by type of video. You can find all 70 of those in one playlist as well. And in my last video, I briefly pointed out that we're getting really close to 100,000 subscribers on this channel. I think that is the coolest thing ever. That is a goal I never thought that I would ever reach. And here we are. At the time of filming this video, we have 82,000 of us here, which is just mind-blowing. Maybe even 83,000 by the time that this video goes live. But the reason I bring that up is I mentioned it in that video and I had a whole bunch of people comment and say, oh my gosh, I thought I was subscribed, or I know I was subscribed and now I'm not for some reason, which brings me to this. YouTube likes to do this fun little thing where it will unsubscribe you from channels that you're subscribed to. I have no idea why this is. If you have any insight on why that is, please let me know down below. It's happened to me too, where I go about my routine watching videos from my favorite creators and somewhere down the line I'm like, I know I was subscribed, why am I not anymore? So this is my humble plea. I would love it if you would just check down there, double check it, see if you're subscribed, and if you're not, maybe consider it, you know, give it some thought, sleep on it, come back, let me know later. I'm very awkward about reminding people to subscribe. I actually hate doing it. I'm cringing at myself right now so hard. But if you're a regular viewer, you love these videos, you find them entertaining or informative, then hop on that subscriber train. We're headed right for 100,000. I'm so excited. I'm so grateful. Enough of all of that. Let's get to what you're here for today, which is horror stories. These are the personal experiences that people have sent in to me via email. I collect them in a folder and I pick out a few to read for each video. Now, if you have your own MLM horror story you would like to send in and have considered for a video, the instructions for how to send that to me are in the description box below. So let's get into it. Let's read some stories today. This story says, "Hi Hannah, my name is blank, but please keep me anonymous for the video. I've been interested in anti-MLM content ever since my experience with a Hun. When I was 17, I began looking for college roommates on Facebook. I was looking for roommates at the University of Alabama. After lots of searching, I found one girl who was so sweet and just my vibe. We agreed to room together and began looking for 2 more roommates since we wanted a 4-bedroom dorm. Let's call her Sarah. We talked often and I was so excited to room with her. Well, fast forward a couple months and the COVID-19 pandemic began. I was unable to tour colleges due to lockdown restrictions, and since the University of Alabama was 12 hours from my hometown, I did not feel comfortable going that far away without ever having been on campus. I also am from Chicago and I felt that the University of Alabama would be too big of a culture shock to me. I had to let Sarah know that I was not going to be able to room with her anymore since I was not attending that college. She was upset, but she understood. It wasn't until then that she brought up an awesome business opportunity that she thought I would be perfect for. Interested and flattered, I asked her about it. She told me that the company she worked for was called Arbonne and that they were looking to hire new high school grads as influencers. A couple issues with that sentence. Hire and influencers. That's the thing about MLMs, is it's not a job. You're not an employee. I guess some people could argue that it is a job if they are the ones that make enough money to sustain either like a part-time or a full-time income out of it, even though that's very rare. But you're not hired into these positions. It is very much like a you sign up and pay the startup fee kind of situation, and you're not classified as an employee, you're classified as a 1099 independently contracted salesperson. So when the person trying to recruit you is pitching it as a job that they are hiring you for, that's very misleading. And secondly, the term influencers is also misleading. Yes, I suppose you could claim that you are influencing people to buy the product, therefore you are an influencer, but the way influencers work is very different from the way people in MLMs work. Just at the basic level, if you're in an MLM, you are signing up to partner with one company and one company only. For example, I'm signing up for the Arbonne business opportunity, therefore I'm going to sell Arbonne products. That is my thing. That's what I'm tying myself down to. And you don't make any money if you're in an MLM unless you actually sell that product or you recruit other people into it. Whereas on the influencer side, you have the opportunity to work with multiple brands, and it's typically on a deal by deal basis, like a contract by contract thing. Like I'm going to give one Instagram post to this brand for this much money. I'm gonna make the post, they're gonna cut me the check, that's the end of the deal. You're not tying yourself down to one specific brand, and in a lot of cases, if you get a good brand deal, they're gonna pay you whether or not you sell anything, whether or not anybody buys anything with your code or with your link. Now, not every brand deal is like that. That's something you have to negotiate, but the earning potential for influencers is much, much higher than if you were in an MLM, and they are not the same thing. Side note, Zeke is in the room. I'm filming after my daughter went to bed. He thinks that I should be in bed too, therefore he is on his worst behavior. My sincerest apologies. He's doing his whole let me in the room, let me out of the room, I'm gonna scream no matter where I am situation, so I'm just gonna talk over him, okay? Point being, if you sign up for an MLM, you're not really an influencer. Yet, it's this very trendy, attractive term that a lot of young people are kind of striving for these days, like working on social media is really cool, getting paid to promote brands, like it's really flashy, it's really fun, it's really attractive. And so if you can pitch an MLM opportunity like, hey, come sign up for our company and you get to be an influencer overnight, people might tend to be kind of blinded by that terminology. I was excited. I asked for more information on Arbonne. She sent me a video explaining the pay, which sounded so awesome. I was a broke college student and the video made it seem like everyone made at least $1,000 a month. Her whole family was an Arbonne and they all had the white Arbonne Mercedes. I think that's the brand. Yes, I think you're correct. Different MLM companies have agreements with different car manufacturers, so Mercedes, Lexus, Cadillac, you get it. Yes, Arbonne is the Arbonne Mercedes, which I have to say this every time it comes up, it's not a free car. It is your car, you take out the loan, you pay for it, and the company will cut you a check to go towards that car payment only if you remain in the company, you remain at your rank, and you remain performing at the same level. As soon as you drop in the ranks, as soon as you quit, as soon as something happens and you can't work the business as hard enough, quote unquote, you lose that car bonus check and that car is your responsibility now. I just have to say it. It is one of the most scammy and sketchy components of MLM companies. So you're saying her whole family was an Arbonne, they all had the white Arbonne Mercedes, and her family seemed very successful. She came from a family of 6 girls and all of them were Arbonne reps, even their mom. A little family business here, I see. I'm a finance major and my dad works in finance also. Something about the pay seemed like a red flag to me. I decided that I should do some research. After typing in Arbonne on Google, everything from their website seemed so positive. But I stumbled across a YouTube video called Anti-MLM from Kiki Chanel. I started watching it and I was horrified that I almost was sucked into essentially a pyramid scheme. And that right there, my friend, is exactly why anti-MLM content exists. That is the mission. You've never heard of the company, you don't know much about it, you type it into Google, the video pops up, you watch it, you learn about it, and you save yourself from getting trapped into what is essentially a pyramid scheme. Perfect. I love to hear that. I messaged Sarah and I told her that I was interested, but I couldn't join because I was not 18 yet, in an attempt to politely decline her offer since I did value our friendship. Sarah said she understood and we didn't talk much after that. Fast forward about a year and I get a message from Sarah on my 18th birthday. She was wishing me a happy birthday, but she also wanted to ask if I was still interested in Arbonne. I couldn't believe she waited basically a year to ask me to join Arbonne on my birthday. I honestly felt bad for her because I can tell she only joined because her family encouraged it. I don't think she saw much success because she would post a bunch of Arbonne advertisements on Instagram, but slowly stopped posting as much. It's a shame that this was essentially a family business. And I thought about all the people she met in her sorority and that she roomed with that she probably pressured to join Arbonne. In fact, I saw that her college freshman year roommate actually signed up under her for Arbonne. Anyways, I'm glad I had some background in business and finance to not get sucked into the scheme. If something seems too good to be true, it probably is. If MLMs are so great, how come everyone isn't in one? The world's richest people are not from MLMs. It seems like more of a flashy lifestyle culture for the Huns. I'm now a graduate student pursuing a master's in finance, and watching videos about MLM Huns discussing finances of the company always irks me. My boyfriend's mom has also joined a couple MLMs because her relative is a successful It Works representative. I truly believe an issue with MLMs is that family members trust each other when they claim that they are rich because of the MLMs. Thank you for reading my story and sharing other stories. It's always so interesting to hear about. Good luck with motherhood motherhood and say hi to your kitty cat for me. Well, he made an appearance in your story. So, Zeke, did you know that you have an online fan club? For once in his life, he has nothing to say. I love your story because it's a true testament to how being curious and asking critical questions and using critical thinking skills can really help save you from getting involved with something like an MLM. You said here that you have a background in finance, something sounded off, you took it upon yourself to do some research on the internet, see what other people have to say about it, and who knows how much time, energy, effort, money that may have saved you. That is fantastic. I love to hear it. And also, very interesting that this almost roommate of yours seems to have come from actually like a family full of Arbonne reps. I feel like we don't see that super often. It's very common when somebody gets involved with an MLM for them to start pitching all of their friends and family and all those people closest to them. But I don't feel like I hear about a whole bunch of sisters all in the same MLM together very often. That's a really unique thing about this situation. And what it makes me wonder about is, what does the hierarchy of that pyramid look like? I guess maybe it's the mom who recruited all of her daughters and like all of her daughters are on that same level of her downline maybe. Wouldn't it be weird if a sister joined and she recruited another sister and they recruited another sister and it's like this hierarchical pyramid of family members all in the same company? I just have to wonder about how that complicates the family dynamics, especially when there's so many circumstances in these companies where your success is dependent on the success of your teammates and how difficult and messy that could get. If your teammates, the ones who are supposed to be contributing to these team goals like sales volume quotas and things like that, if those teammates are also your siblings, good lord, like no thank you. That could get really, really tricky. But anyway, good for you for listening to that gut feeling and those red flags and for branching out, seeing what you could find about the company before you decided to join, before you let all those flashy things get to you, like the promise of being an influencer or saying that you're going to make $1,000 a month or seeing that this whole family all has the Arbonne Mercedes, that kind of thing. That can be very flashy and it sounds so good and it can be easy to be blinded by that. So good for you for taking a step back and seeing what other information you could find out on your own in order to make the most informed decision possible. This one says, "Hi Hannah, I'm going to put this at the top. Content warning for brief mention of murder." Okay. Okay. I think that would be a first for MLM horror stories. Let's see what this is all about. I've been watching your videos for a while now and noticing an uptick in Kirby rep horror stories, so I wanted to share my own, but as someone who was a rep for 28 days. I do apologize for the length, but there's quite a bit to unpack. I was a college kid back home for summer in the break between my sophomore and junior years, looking for a job to save money for my study abroad trip I was about to embark on. I've always had a hard time getting work, still do, so I was really desperate when I saw the Craigslist ad. Yes, Craigslist. It was an ad for a sales job that was commissions only, but if you made 60 appointments in 30 days or less, even if you sold nothing, you were guaranteed $2,000. If you didn't complete it, you would be given a vacuum and you would keep whatever amount you sold it for, or you could keep it for yourself. I'm unsure if this is standard for the Kirby stores, but that was the incentive for this one. For a little insight into how Kirby works, the reps make a commission off of the sales, but we usually are under a store. A store is what a previous rep would buy into, and then they would get other reps below them. So it's not like a typical MLM where any rep can just build a downline under them. Being a rep, though, generally only costs you your time, of which I had in abundance during that summer. Now, there were a lot of red flags, but to paint a picture of why I ignored them, I was 20, I was desperate, so $2,000 sounded good, and 2 appointments a day sounded reasonable. My mom had actually bought a Kirby when I was about 10, so from my experience, they were actually good products. My parents had a cream carpet for 10 years, and despite having 2 kids and an inside-outside cat, the carpet stayed perfectly cream, even in high-traffic areas. So, not long after I applied, maybe one day, I got a call back for an interview and I was thrilled. I went in for my interview, dressed professionally, and the interview was in a rented office building, so it didn't raise any red flags. The interview went well, and the next day I was offered a job, so I took it, again with the understanding that it was commissions-based. My boyfriend pointed out a big red flag that I chose to overlook. We had 1 week of training wherein we got no appointments, and I wasn't paid for the training, which isn't normal for a a job, he said. I ignored him because sadly no other place was calling me and I needed the money. I go in every day for that first week, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, learning how to use the machine to a point where you could take it apart and put it back together blindfolded, and learned everything there is to know about that godforsaken machine. Did you know that the vacuum in the little toaster is named Kirby because it's a Kirby vacuum? No, I did not know that. And then after 1 week, it was time to hit the bricks. We were all loaded into a minivan, an Odyssey that one rep borrowed from his mom, and we just went door to door. I got a lot of doors slammed in my face, but I did get a few appointments where I would go in and clean a room as I was taught. Now we would usually start in the room that they chose, and the goal was to keep showing everything the Kirby could do, which was everything, and use all the attachments. The stretch goal was to show the Kirby in handheld mode, where you can take the long handle off and replace it with a smaller one, and to force your way into the bedroom and show all of the dirt on the mattress, quote, where your children sleep, to convince them that they needed the Kirby for their family's health. It was a stretch goal because it's not a requirement, and I rarely did it. That is so interesting because I feel like that's come up in other stories about Kirby before, where they say, I welcomed them into my home. I told them, okay, you can clean this front room right here at the front of the house. And then somehow they work their way into the back of the house or into your bedroom even, and how that feels really invasive, like that wasn't where they were welcomed. How did we go from agreeing to vacuum the front living room to now you're upstairs in my bedroom stripping the sheets off the bed and vacuuming my mattress? I get that you have a product you're trying to sell, and I get that there's different attachments that work in different situations, but this just feels so personal, so invasive. And I can imagine that that would make the homeowner feel pretty uncomfortable as well. I wonder how effective of a sales tactic that really is. Like, great, you're vacuuming their mattress and showing them that it's dirty, and that if you use the Kirby vacuum that you're going to make it safer for your kids to sleep or whatever. But in order to do that demonstration, you've now made the homeowner uncomfortable in the place that they're supposed to feel the safest. I can't imagine that that works very well. But I'm happy to hear your insight because I've speculated in other videos. I'm like, how is that possible? Why are they doing this? So thank you for explaining it here. Generally, while we were in the home, a manager who is a rep who had been there successfully selling Kirby's would pop in to check on us and negotiate prices for us since, quote, we were new and shouldn't be doing it ourselves. In my 28 days, the following happened. Here's a bulleted list, okay? The first one says, a Korean family who was there to study theology so they didn't have much money fed me dinner because they felt bad that they couldn't buy a Kirby. I gave no F's at that point and I enjoyed a lovely meal with them. I hope that they're well. I had people threaten to call the police on me multiple times for knocking on their door. I met a woman who actually owned a 50-year-old Kirby and it still worked. It weighed a literal ton though. I think it was made 100% out of steel or something. I went to a Kirby meeting at all of the local shops. It felt like I was in a cult meeting and I hated every second of it. Kirby has a song. Sadly, I've forgotten the lyrics. I was left alone in a man's house where he proceeded to tell me about how he came home to find his wife brutally murdered. There were more details. I will not share them. There's honestly more, but those are some highlights. Yikes. You have seen some things, and I suppose you would if you're going door to door. And in the case of Kirby specifically, this kind of requires you to go into these people's houses as well. Clearly, that can get you into some pretty sticky situations. Now, during that time, I sold a grand total of 4 Kirby's and made exactly $0 in commissions because my manager kept selling them for under the price at which I would get a commission to, quote, keep morale up because no one else was selling or getting appointments as often as I was. Wait a minute. Hold up. How does that boost your morale if you're not getting any commissions off of your sales? I guess I don't understand how this is supposed to be a good thing. My morale certainly would not be boosted if I was making $0 in commission for all my hard work. I worked 12-hour days for 28 days straight, and the owner of the store ended up gifting me $200 because he felt bad that I was putting in so much time and making no returns. $200 for 28 straight days of of work. That's a crime. I'm sorry. I know it's probably technically legal because I'm sure you signed some kind of paperwork that says that this is commissions based and whatever, but that is just awful. I'm sure nobody would agree to work for 28 days straight if they knew that they were only going to get $200 out of it. The straw that broke the camel's back was the one day I drove in for the usual rigmarole and no one was there. The shop owner had decided to take the day off, so I had no way to make appointments or sell anything. I went home pissed. I spent 28 days of my last days in the US working ridiculous hours for pennies, unable to spend quality time with my family or boyfriend before going on a year abroad. As luck would have it, an actual job did call me back that day, offering me $200 for a weekend working at a booth in a mall, so I took it. And I left Kirby just 2 days shy of my free vacuum. I mildly regret not getting the vacuum. They are good machines, but I was sick and tired. The worst part was that my $200 pity Kirby check bounced and I had to go back and get a new one for $207. The $7 was the fee that my bank charged me for the bounced check, and I very sternly asked for that to be covered. The second one cleared. All of this to say, yes, while some of the reps are extremely aggressive, abrasive, and at times downright manipulative, some of us were just poor college kids who were sold a promise and are just holding on. Honestly, if a Kirby rep knocks on your door, my recommendation is to not engage. Just pretend that you're not home. Most, if not all, will walk away. I hope you enjoyed the read. Also, I briefly worked corporate for an MLM that had an office in Seattle. It's gone now, so I feel safe talking about what it's like to work corporate at an MLM. If you're ever curious, please let me know. All the best to you and your growing family. My goodness, this really does give some valuable insight into the life of a Kirby rep, because you're right, there have been kind of an influx in Kirby stories recently. I don't know why that is necessarily, but they do seem to be some of the most outrageous. I think it's just because there is that component of them coming into your home. You're not out in public, they're not approaching you at a grocery store, they're not DMing you on Instagram or anything. No, they are knocking on your door and they are welcoming themselves in. And you're completely right that some of these Kirby reps are just broke college kids or perfectly nice people just trying to make some money. They were sold this promise, they were sold this dream. They're just trying to make it work the way that they were told it was going to, right? And that's a great reminder. We've heard some stories of, like you said, some truly aggressive, abrasive, terrible Kirby reps on this channel, but not everybody is like that, obviously. And I will second your recommendation here that if a Kirby rep comes to your door, it's best to not engage. Honestly, I feel that way about all solicitors. Even this evening, I was making dinner and we have cameras on the front of our house that will alert us if someone's approaching the driveway or at the front door and stuff. I heard a knock on the door and what do? I don't walk to the door and open it. No, I look at my phone, I open up the notification of the cameras, I see who's at the door, and if I see a clipboard or a branded polo shirt of any kind, I'm not answering. That's just the way it goes. Sorry, not gonna happen. But if you do answer the door and if it is a Kirby rep and they're trying to convince you to let them come into your home, I would recommend that you hold firm in your stance that you are not interested and you don't want them to come into your house, because in the stories that I've gotten previously, what tends to happen is they entice you with this idea of, let me clean your floor for free. It sounds great, right? But then they come in, they take their sweet time cleaning, they way overstay their welcome, they try their hardest to sell you this super expensive vacuum, obviously, and then at some point it feels like they're kind of recruiting backup in the form of that manager who's hanging out in the car on the street to come in and sort of double down on that sales pitch. Now it's like a 2-on-1 situation, and that can be really uncomfortable. Just save yourself the grief, okay? Don't answer the door, and if you do, please don't let them into your house. Unless you really, really, really want a super long sales pitch for a very expensive vacuum. But I really appreciate your story and your perspective as someone who was a Kirby rep for 28 whole days, 28 straight days, by the way. I just can't even believe, well, no, I can kind of believe it. I was gonna say, I can't even believe that you didn't make any money at all, but you know, truthfully, not that shocking. It sounds like you were promised something that this opportunity could not deliver, and that these were really poor working conditions, and I'm super glad to hear that you got yourself out of that. This one says, hi Hannah, Zeke, and Cooper. This is their channel, I'm just a guest on it, so thank you for addressing them. This horror story is about my twin sister. I'm not sure if she's watched any sort of anti-MLM content, so please keep me private. Buckle up, because this story is one long emotional roller coaster, and I'll try to condense it down as much as I can. My sister's been in Amway for 3 3 years. She separated from her ex-husband in 2019, and right after she moved into our mom's house, she was approached by a couple that had an opportunity for her to change her life around. She was newly divorced with 2 young boys with no job, so of course, when this couple told her about this opportunity, she wanted to take the chance to change her life. I wasn't very aware of MLMs and how destructive they are, so when she mentioned it in one conversation about meeting them, it struck me as odd, but I didn't think much of it. She rambled on about how she was so excited to be taken through the process and build the life for herself and her kids that she always wanted. Time went on and she started to slowly change. I noticed she would talk more about extravagant mansions, cars, and traveling. This wasn't exactly abnormal for her to talk about, but the amount that she was talking about these things was strange to me. She never told me the name of the company or even what the business was about, and I never really bothered to ask since it wasn't exactly a concern of mine at the time. One day I got curious and started Googling around to find any sort of clue as to what the opportunity was. After some time, I saw a Reddit post talking about how a husband and wife were approached by a couple in Target that enticed them to join Amway, and how much money they eventually lost from the business. The post talked about them being roped in by these mentors, inspiring them to get rich and travel the world. They mentioned that they were told that if they wanted to become wealthy and have time freedom, that they would need to make sacrifices for the betterment of their future. Those sacrifices included not spending time with family and going to meetings instead, devoting all of their free time to reading materials, listening to audios, and attending conferences in Vegas nearly every month. I started to become concerned and I did some more investigating into MLMs, and I discovered just how large the anti-MLM community is. I saw so many stories about Amway in particular, and at one point I came across an income disclosure statement for the year previous. The sheer amount of people at the bottom making no money versus the 0.1% of people at the top astonished me. I rather impulsively sent it to my sister one day when I was on my lunch break. I hoped that by looking at the actual numbers, it would make her consider changing her mind. Boy, was I wrong. She immediately called me and was very defensive and told me that all those people at the bottom just didn't want it hard enough and that they were quitters. A tale as old as time. The number one defense when confronted with the fact that MLM income disclosures are so bottom heavy and there's so many people at the bottom making no money is that, of course, there's very few people at the top because very few people work hard enough for it. If people just worked hard, they would get there, but they don't. So that's why there's so many people at the bottom. It makes me want to gouge my eyes out the number of times I have heard this, and it's such a misconception because it completely disregards the structure of the compensation plan and the fact that it is incredibly difficult to get to the top. Zeke, do you have something to say? Yeah? Go ahead. Now's your time in the limelight. Let's go. You want to come up here? Come on. There you are. We just have to give him his moment, okay? He'll settle down eventually. There you go. Rub on the camera. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Hello, everybody. It's me. It's Zeke. I know you all came to see me and not listen to my mom talk. You would think that this cat is starved for attention. I promise you he's not. It's just his personality, okay? We love him for it, for better, for worse. What was I even saying? Oh my goodness. Compensation plans. Right. Okay. So compensation plans are structured in such a way that it is very difficult for people to make it to the top. They are not designed to be accommodating for all people. They are not designed for all people to make good money. So when we say, oh, the people who didn't make it to the top are the ones that just didn't work hard enough, you are completely disregarding that that is the way the company was intended. It's a money-making scheme. It's a numbers game. You cannot make it to the top based on hard work alone. She also said that those numbers don't apply to her because she wanted it more than anyone else. I told her I was sorry right as she hung up on me. Quite shaken by her response, I left lunch early and just decided to finish out the day at work to get my mind off of it. Fast forward through the years, she became increasingly distant and would hardly talk to me. I would invite her to come to dinners or even just ask her if she wanted to go to the park with me and her kids, and she always said that she was too busy. The only times she would text me would be if she needed someone to babysit her boys so she could attend Amway meetings. At this point, I was already vehemently anti-MLM and I didn't want to enable her to continue being in Amway, so I would just say I was busy. I love my nephews to death and I wanted to spend time with them, which made me feel so torn about rejecting her request to babysit. It was also hurting my feelings that she only ever texted or called if she needed something from me, never just to spend some quality time together. The only time she would stop by was to shill some crappy free Amway products products to me. I would just take them, not wanting to seem rude, but I would just end up throwing them out after she left. There was one day when I was going to hang out with one of my friends. I decided I would just ask her if she wanted to come over for a bit and hang out with us. To my surprise, she agreed, saying that since the boys were with her ex-husband, she would stop by. She showed up and we were all chatting and started watching random funny videos on YouTube. At one point, we watched a video where a YouTuber was giving out bananas and clean shirts to homeless people, which I thought was very kind. She made a snide comment out of nowhere saying, if people are born poor and are still poor, that's their fault. Both my friend and I looked at each other, shocked. I interjected saying, I don't agree with that. There's plenty of reasons why people who grow up in poverty remain poor. Things like drug addiction, disability, and PTSD, and lots of other things. She said, no, if someone grows up in a poor household but doesn't do anything to make more money or at least get an education, then that's their fault. Hannah, when I tell you how bad I wanted to yell at her for being so heartless and delusional, I was ready to blow. But I just grit my teeth and said again that I don't agree with that, and I changed the subject. At this time, my dog was still a puppy and needed to go out to potty. I took her out in the front yard, still fuming, but glad that I could step away and calm myself. I heard the door open and she walked out, purse and belongings in hand, throwing them into her car. I was sitting on my porch and she walked over and crouched down as if she were talking to one of her kids. If you're gonna be negative like that, then I don't want to come over anymore. I don't need that kind of mentality around me. Negative mentality? Are you talking about me disagreeing with your opinion? She made a face and said in a very condescending tone, I know you may think that way, but I'm not going to surround myself with negative people. I don't need that in my life. I finally snapped and I yelled at her, well then don't come around anymore. Just don't if you feel that way. She left without saying a word. I went back inside screaming and ranting to my friend and husband about what happened. I was in tears, angry, and upset about what kind of person she has become. They both agreed that she was very delusional and that my feelings were valid. She had cut off contact with me for the next few months, never responding to my texts or calls. I was incredibly sad and frustrated about how our relationship was diminishing. Around springtime last year, out of the blue, she asked me to watch the boys for an hour or so. So I finally gave up and told her that I would be okay with it if it was for an hour. I showed up to her small apartment and noticed there was no couch, a table, or any seats. I asked her why she didn't have a couch anymore, thinking that she was just going to eventually buy a new one, and her response was rather shocking. She asked, well, what do you do on a couch? I replied, sit on it? So what do you do when you sit? I wanted to roll my eyes so hard, but I jokingly replied, well, I make money doing freelance work while I sit on mine. She scoffed and said that she didn't want to own a couch because it would encourage her to be lazy. It was at this point that I realized she was so deeply into Amway that it had brainwashed her to go to extremes to succeed with the business. I changed the subject before I would start arguing with her, telling her that I'll watch the boys for an hour and that she should go to her meeting. A few weeks later, she excitedly told me one day that she had met a guy that was also in the business. She went on and on about how impressed she was with how he built his business and told me with sheer confidence that she would marry him someday. Well, they did end up getting married in November last year after 4 months of dating. I wasn't really surprised, to say the least, but I was relieved that she finally found a man that made her happy, and I only wanted the best for them. Now, a few weeks ago, she texted me asking if I had a Costco card. I told her yes and asked her why. She told me that she wanted to buy some cheaper food for their Amway Vegas trip the coming weekend. At this point, I was already so mentally drained from job searching that I wanted to tell her no, but I figured if this was the only way I could spend time with my sister, I would oblige. We met up at Costco and I helped her grab some food for their trip. I will add that there were times in the past when I would go out with her in public. She took every opportunity to strike up conversations with strangers to vet them out if she could recruit them. So when we were checking out, she started talking to the cashier, complimenting her on her hair. They were making small talk while finishing our transaction, and then my sister started to ask her about working at Costco. The cashier told her about the horrible experience she had working at Costco in LA, and that she loved working at this other Costco. My sister then started to ask her about what she wanted to do in life, and And that's when I put my foot down. I was not going to allow her to rope this poor woman into joining a pyramid scheme. I told my sister and the cashier that we needed to hurry and get going because I had things to do. It was true. She said her goodbyes to the cashier and we finally left. This led to us standing outside her car for 30 minutes while she blabbed on and on about how she was so grateful for her mentors and that she and her husband are going to leave their job in 2 years. She also gushed about how she didn't want to life working a job where she wasn't allowed to have her schedule or choose her income or be able to spend time with her family. In my mind, I was screaming, wow, if spending time with your family is so important to you, then maybe stop spending every waking moment in Amway. She also mentioned how she has devoted blood, sweat, and tears to get where she wanted in the business, and that she didn't want to work with people who were quitters that had a scarcity mindset. I interjected, asking her if she had dealt with a lot of people quitting the business. She scoffed, saying that she dealt with it all the time, adding that she didn't want to waste her time on quitters. I told her that some people just didn't want to be involved in an MLM, and that's why they didn't want to continue going through the process. Her expression changed drastically. She asked, "Do you remember when you sent me that document a couple years ago?" "Yeah, you mean the income disclosure statement that Amway put on their website?" Yeah, whatever. That was written by the government. Do you remember how I told you those numbers don't apply to me? Because they don't. My husband and I are going to leave our jobs in 2 years. It's happening. When you mention the 0.1% of people who succeed, well, we're there. We're at the top. Because we want it more than anyone else. Stunned, I stood there, wanting to argue, but I knew it wouldn't change anything. Okay, well, good luck then. I have to get going. I said goodbye, then went to my car. I probably sat there for a good 10 minutes, trying to fight the tears and frustration building. I worry for her children. She doesn't spend any time with them. She has a full-time work-from-home job and she homeschools her kids. Homeschools is in quotations. I highly doubt they get the education they need since she is so busy building her business. In her free time, she devotes it to Amway, not spending time with her sons, not giving them the love they need. My nephews do not get enough attention and they have no hobbies or activities to do, and they have zero opportunities to socialize with other kids. Heck, neither my sister, her kids, or new husband have hobbies, as they've admitted in the past. If that kind of environment continues, I worry that as my nephews get older, they will act out and have no opportunities to find what they really want out of life, because I'm sure my sister will be brainwashing them to work in Amway. At this point, I've just given up. I no longer want to feel mentally exhausted and irritated being around her. I decided I don't want to hang out with her alone anymore. I've been too nice and too much of a pushover, and I'm not going to spend time with her if this is how she's going to be. She's been defensive, rude, condescending, and disconnected from reality. I just hope someday she and her husband wake up and realize that Amway is a scam, and that someday I will be able to have a real relationship with her again. P.S. I won't write it here, but I ended up getting approached by an Amway IBO in a Barnes & Noble late last year, and I decided to go get coffee with her just so I could possibly plant a seed of doubt in her mind. But that's another roller coaster story for another day. Thank you for taking the time to read this if you have. I know it's a long story. I've teared up multiple times writing it. You've been such a blessing for the community, and I love seeing how your channel has grown and that it's your job now. Thank you for doing all that you do, and thank you for sharing these stories. Hopefully it will inspire people who are in MLMs to realize that they're in a scam and to get out. Give pets to Zeke and Cooper for me. Wow, I mean, at the core of your story, it's heartbreak. This is one of the ways that MLMs can tear families apart. They can tear apart really close relationships. You kind of mentioned it at the beginning of your story that she seems to have changed after joining Amway. And unfortunately, that absolutely does happen, especially if those people take the business really seriously and they really envision themselves getting to the top of the pyramid and being really successful and having it become their full-time job and things like that, because for lack of better terms, they've drank the Kool-Aid, they're really brainwashed by all these promises, they have their eye set on this goal and they're not going to let anybody or anything get in their way of it, including their sister, including the people closest to them in their lives, and that can change a person. It just really sucks to see. I'm so sorry that this is happening to you because it puts you in such an awkward position, and you've had to witness firsthand how your sister went from being just your sister to being an Amway rep and being totally devoted to this company and to this goal, and that's got to be heartbreaking to see how she has essentially isolated herself in the name of Amway. And this part of your story points out something really important, which is that your sister was talking about how she wanted to do this whole Amway thing because she wanted to be able to choose her own schedule and spend more time with her family. But then you go on to say that she has a full-time work from home job and she homeschools her kids. You would think that if you were someone who really valued like a flexible schedule, work from home, family time, all that kind of thing, it sounds like that work from home job and homeschooling your kids is the perfect recipe for that. Why is Amway even a part of it? You already work from home. You're already with your kids all hours of the day. I just can't really imagine how Amway could be credited for giving her those things, because let's say that Amway's cut out of the equation, wouldn't she still be working from home and having a flexible schedule and being with her kids? Yes. And you even briefly mentioned it in here that because we have this Amway component as well, it sounds like she's spending all of her free time dedicated to that. So if flexibility and family time is the goal here, then why are you dedicating all of your free time to something that's pulling you away from your family? It just seems totally contradictory, and I wonder if she recognizes that. Because the way it sounds, at least, is that she would still have the lifestyle she wants to live even if Amway wasn't in the picture at all. Very fascinating, but I'm sorry to hear that it sounds like this MLM has come between yet another relationship. It shouldn't be that way, but unfortunately this is all too common with MLMs. The environment, the culture of MLM companies pushes really hard this idea of cutting out the haters and leaving them behind because they're not supportive of you, and you need to keep your eye on the goal and keep grinding towards that. And that obviously leaves a ton of broken relationships in its wake, and I apologize that that's happened to you here. Thank you for sending in this story, and of course the hope is that one day your sister will realize what kind of scam Amway is, and hopefully your relationship can be repaired. This next story is a super duper short one, but it says, "Hi Hannah, I've been pretty lucky because I haven't had too many Hun interactions. But with you having worked in education, I thought you might find this very short story interesting. I was a substitute teacher when I was in my early 20s, and I took an assignment at an elementary school for a 5th grade class. When I got to the classroom, the teacher was there. This was rare, but did happen sometimes. She was finishing up writing notes about lessons I should cover and rules for the classroom. Completely unprompted, she said that the reason she had to miss teaching that day was because she was hosting a party for her side business. She tried showing me some of the products on her phone. It was pure romance. I just barely glanced and tried to end the conversation as quickly as possible. Fortunately, she didn't try to recruit me once she saw how uncomfortable I was getting. I'm all for being open about sex and sexuality, but there is a time and place. It just felt so gross that an educator would talk to someone that she just met in an elementary school about her sex toy MLM, and to need a substitute teacher just so that she could have her party. If there was so much time freedom, why would she need to take time off of her day job? Anyway, I love your channel. I'm wishing you and your family well. Keep doing what you're doing." Short, sweet, and impactful. First off, a teacher in an MLM, not surprising to me in the slightest. Teachers are huge targets for these things because teachers are typically very underpaid. A lot of teachers do have second jobs or summer jobs just to make ends meet. What is shocking to me is that she would take a day off of work to go do something for her MLM. Paid days off in teaching are so valuable and they're so scarce that it's almost hard to believe that she would give one of those up to go host a party for her MLM. I feel like you would really have to believe that this party is gonna be a smash hit and that you're gonna make a ton of money and it's gonna be super worth it, because if you're taking a paid day off, that's a really valuable day that you are losing. Or if you're taking an unpaid day off, then you have to assume that the money you're gonna be making from the party is going to at least match, if not hopefully exceed, the amount of pay that you would have lost out on by taking a day off of your full-time job. And now that I'm thinking about it, why is there a party being hosted in the middle of a weekday? Generally speaking, that's not a great time for most people. That's not a time when most people are super available. I feel like more commonly we see MLM parties being hosted in the evenings or on weekends. That's when most people can attend, I would imagine. So that in itself is really bizarre. And this is kind of weird given the nature of the products that Pure Romance sells as well. Like, I'm just imagining a bunch of ladies getting together on a Wednesday morning to hear a pitch for adult toys and place their orders. It just feels really out of place, doesn't it? I mean, to each their own, but if I was gonna host a party of any kind, even if it wasn't for an MLM, I would not choose the middle of a weekday. And exactly what you said. If there was so much time freedom, why would she need to take time off of her day job? I fear that the answer to that is that there really isn't any time freedom. You are sacrificing so much to be in an MLM, apparently including ditching out on your day job to go hopefully make some money with your side hustle. This one says, "Hi Hannah, I've been watching your videos for a while now, and I genuinely thought that I never had any experiences with any MLMs outside of friends getting involved with them and trying to get me to join their downline. But then I remembered the couple of weird experiences I had when I was in my late teens, around 18, 19. Feel free to use my name if you decide to read this email in a video, by the way. See, the thing is, I'm disabled. I have a chronic pain disorder, fibromyalgia, and a couple other issues related to that, like skin sensitivity issues, temperature regulation issues, and of course, muscle and joint pain 24/7. I'm medicated and treated, but I mean, it's a chronic pain condition. It's lifelong for many. It doesn't just go away. I have good days, and bad days can be truly horrible and full of suffering. On those days, I curl up on the couch and watch your videos, and I feel a little better, so thank you." Oh, wow. And thank you for watching. I'm glad that the videos can be a little comforting. When I was around 18 or 19 years old, I really didn't want to accept that my disability was going to affect me for the rest of my life. And that meant I didn't want to use any mobility aids or actual pain medication, even though I'd been disabled since I was 15 and I knew it wasn't going to get better. I think I thought that if I acted able-bodied, then I would feel more able-bodied. Spoiler, that did not work. I did everything I could to get better and to help the pain without actually seeming disabled to other people. And that meant trying odd things just to see if they worked. This girl from my college told me of a company that had something that could help, and that thanks to them, her mom was basically pain-free after several years of arthritis pain. The company sold these pressure point therapy gloves and socks that she swore by, but what made red flags go up for me was that she was selling them. She wasn't sharing a product that helped, she was selling it, and she wanted me to try so I could sell it too. Also, the company sold their products for so much money. It was like 3 times the market price for similar products, but theirs looked cheaper and less well made. They also sold oils, vitamins, etc., which is what put me off of them fully. I'm trying to think of what company that could be. I don't know that I've ever heard of an MLM company selling pressure point gloves and socks before. If anybody knows what company this could be, let me know in the comments. As if that wasn't enough, a different girl from the same college started talking to me about disability and chronic pain, and I thought that she was somebody who understood what it's like to live like that. I felt like I could vent freely, so I did. I talked about grieving the life I thought I would get, about not wanting to look weak, and about how much pain I was in, etc. She told me she could help, and she tried to sell me wellness teas and shakes. She told me they were natural painkillers, and that they would detox my body, and that she'd seen these things cure people in my situation in the past. Cure people. Not help, not treat, no. Cure. I didn't believe her, and by this point I was already a detox is BS, that's what your liver's for type of person, so I didn't buy her stuff or give her my number, and that was it. But it was crushing in the moment to realize that she was using my experience to try to sell me something. Here's the thing, if a product like a tea or a shake truly was a quote natural painkiller that detoxes your body, don't you think that would be something that medical professionals would be prescribing to people with chronic pain conditions? If those things really were an effective course of treatment, don't you think that there would be research on it? Don't you think that medical professionals would have knowledge about it? Don't you think they would be recommending it to you or prescribing it to you? It's always a red flag when somebody in a salesperson position is telling you that these things work, rather than a doctor or a professional saying that these things work. And also, things like teas and shakes and supplements, they're not regulated pretty much at all, and very rarely is there any research done on them or any studies that prove that these claims are actually true. Generally speaking, these claims are born out of people's testimony. It's them saying, hey, I took this product and it worked this way for me. And that's it. That's where it ends. So you can go ahead and just trust what they're telling you is true, or you can apply some critical thinking to it and think, why would they be pitching that to me? What motivation do they have to be recommending that I try their supplements that they're selling? Oh, right, money. It's not that those experiences were horror stories. In the moment, it was more like a mild annoyance, really. But what shocked me when I got older and thought back on it was that they were preying on a person that was disabled and desperate for a solution, any solution. It's terrifying to me that they heard chronic pain and thought, "Ah, yes, a new victim." Disabled and alone in the world, at least that's what it felt like, is a scary place to be. And that they would try to use that to sell me a product is horrifying to me. What I did not know at the time is that my liver and my kidneys were both starting to be affected by my non-painkiller medication. And had I actually tried one of those detox teas, I might have actually completely screwed my liver up, like to the point where I might have needed a transplant. Had I been slightly more gullible, I would have been in some actual danger. The good news is that I stopped those medications and my liver and kidneys are back to normal function. And even my stomach, which was so bad I was basically popping antacids like Tic Tacs, is mostly back to normal. The other good news is that I've accepted my disability as a part of me, so I use crutches without shame when I need them, and I'm on better medication. I even got my bachelor's recently. I'm disappointed I don't remember the name of either company. They should absolutely be put on blast for their behavior. A part of me hopes that they're not active anymore, and if they are, that they're less predatory. But I don't believe they'd change quite so much in the 5 years since this has happened. To other people who may be in a similar situation, it won't work. It's not worth it. Holistic medicine helps. Things like acupuncture are incredible, but detox teas are not it. Find other people like you, talk to them, help each other. You'll be all right, I promise. This is incredibly long, so I'm going to end it there. Congratulations on your baby and welcoming back from maternity leave. Much love to you, your family, and your cats. Mine is purring in his little bed as I type this. He's such a gremlin. I love him. Ugh, my cats are gremlins too. Actually, just the one. Just Zeke is a gremlin. Cooper is an angel. What's sticking out to me here at the end of your story is that you're saying, had you actually tried one of those detox teas, it could have really screwed you up. And this is something that we don't bring up enough, which is that not only is it predatory to be targeting people based on their certain conditions and pitching them things like supplements, but it has the potential to be actually dangerous. This is not a harmless act. And it just goes to show that people who sign up for MLMs, most of the time, they don't have any kind of qualifications or certifications or background knowledge on the product that they're selling. These are just people who were pitched a dream and they're signing up for a business opportunity so that they can make some extra money. And they may not know that those products that they are recommending for you to try could actually do you more damage than good based on your personal health history. That is something that your doctor would need to take a look at. That's why you should leave the prescriptions and the recommendations up to professionals. This random girl from your college campus selling detox tea knows nothing about you and nothing about your personal situation, and she could have really messed you up by selling you something that would have harmed you. It's just wild to me. There is no vetting process for MLM companies. Anybody can sign up for them. You do not have to prove that you know anything about anything before you sign up to sell these kinds of products. And there are going to be cases where MLM reps are recommending products to people that are not good for them, but they don't know that. They may not even care about that because at the end of the day, they close the sale and that's great for them and they get to move on. This is just such a real issue that we don't talk about enough, so I'm really happy that your story brought it up. And with that, my friends, that's all the stories I have for you for this MLM Horror Stories video today. It is 11:15 p.m. I feel delirious. Do I look delirious? Do I sound delirious? Oh my goodness, I'm so tired. I need to go to bed. But again, here's another reminder to you that if you have your own story you want to send in, I would love to have it. I'd love to read it. I would love to consider it for a video. You can check out the description box to find the instructions on how to send that to me. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you, and I'll see you in my next one real soon.